The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the royal residence as Catherine stood before her mirror, carefully adjusting the delicate pearl necklace that had belonged to her grandmother. Today marked the beginning of what would become one of the most significant weeks of her public life. The state trip to Wales had been planned for months, but it carried special meaning beyond the usual diplomatic duties and public appearances. Catherine had always felt a deep connection to Wales. It was where she and William had made their first home as a married couple, on the island of Anglesey, where William served as a search and rescue pilot. Those early years of marriage, away from the constant scrutiny of London, had given them a chance to build their relationship on solid ground. Now, returning to Wales in her role as the Princess of Wales, she felt both excitement and the weight of responsibility. Her private secretary knocked gently on the door, reminding her that the motorcade would be ready in 30 minutes. Catherine took one last look in the mirror, smoothing down her elegant navy blue dress coat. She had chosen this particular outfit carefully. The color represented both sophistication and approachability, qualities she hoped to embody throughout the trip. The drive to their first destination took them through the beautiful Welsh countryside. Catherine gazed out the window at the rolling green hills and stone cottages that dotted the landscape. She remembered the countless walks she and William had taken through similar scenery during their time at university and later when they lived in Wales. There was something about this land that had always spoken to her heart. Their first stop was a community center in Cardiff that specialized in early childhood development. Catherine had championed children's mental health and early years development as one of her key areas of focus, and this visit would allow her to see firsthand how local organizations were making a difference in young lives. As their car pulled up to the modest brick building, she could see a small crowd had gathered, including many young families with children. Stepping out of the car, Catherine was immediately struck by the warmth of the welcome. Unlike some of the more formal events she attended in London, this felt genuine and heartfelt. A little girl, no more than 5 years old, broke free from her mother's hand and ran toward Catherine, clutching a small bouquet of wildflowers she had picked that morning. Catherine knelt down to the child's level, accepting the flowers with a genuine smile that lit up her entire face. This was why she loved this work. These moments of real human connection that reminded her why her role mattered. The little girl whispered something in Catherine's ear, and she laughed, a sound that seemed to put everyone present at ease. Inside the community center, Catherine was given a tour of the various programs they offered. She watched as toddlers engaged in structured play activities designed to develop their social and emotional skills. In one room, mothers attended parenting classes while their older children participated in art therapy sessions. The dedication of the staff was evident in every interaction she observed. During a roundtable discussion with local parents and community workers, Catherine listened intently as they shared their experiences and challenges. One young mother spoke about struggling with postpartum depression and how the center's support groups had literally saved her life. Another parent described how their autistic son had blossomed through the specialized programs offered at the center. Catherine found herself deeply moved by these stories. While she had read reports and statistics about childhood development and family support, hearing these personal accounts reminded her why her advocacy work was so important. She took notes throughout the discussion, asking thoughtful questions and offering words of encouragement to the parents who had been brave enough to share their experiences. As the morning progressed, Catherine participated in a storytelling session with a group of preschoolers. Sitting cross-legged on the colorful carpet, she read from a picture book about friendship and kindness. The children hung on her every word, and she found herself improvising voices for the different characters, much to their delight. One little boy raised his hand during the story and asked if she was a real princess. Catherine smiled and explained that while she was a princess, she was also a mother just like many of their moms, and that being kind and caring about others was what truly mattered. The simplicity and honesty of her response seemed to satisfy the children completely. After lunch with the community center staff, Catherine visited their new outdoor learning space, which had been developed with funding from her foundation. The garden area featured raised beds where children could learn about growing vegetables, a sensory play area with different textures and materials, and a quiet corner where children could go when they needed a moment to calm down. She spent time with each group of children, helping them plant seeds in the garden and watching as they explored the sensory stations. Her natural ease with children was evident as she joined in their activities without any concern for her expensive clothing or perfect hair. At one point, she ended up with soil under her fingernails and paint smudges on her dress coat, but she seemed completely unbothered by these minor imperfections. The afternoon's activities included a meeting with local government officials and charity representatives to discuss expanding early childhood programs throughout Wales. Catherine listened carefully to their proposals and offered insights based on her years of working in this field. Her questions demonstrated a deep understanding of the issues at hand, and her suggestions were both practical and innovative. As the day wound down, Catherine took a quiet moment to walk through the community center's memorial garden, dedicated to children who had lost their lives too early. She paused at each small plaque, reading the names and dates. This sobering reminder of why her work mattered gave her renewed determination to continue advocating for children's welfare and family support. The drive back to their accommodations was peaceful, with Catherine reflecting on the day's experiences. She had been reminded once again why she had chosen to focus her efforts on early childhood development. The work being done in communities like this one was making real differences in real lives, and she felt privileged to be able to support and highlight these efforts. That evening, as she reviewed her notes from the day and prepared for the next day's activities, Catherine felt a sense of anticipation building. Tomorrow would bring new communities to visit and new stories to hear. But more than that, she knew that each day of this trip was bringing her closer to one of the most significant moments of her royal career: the upcoming Tiara event that had captured the attention of royal watchers around the world. The Tiara event represented more than just a formal ceremony. It symbolized her growing role within the royal family and her increasing importance in representing the monarchy both at home and abroad. As she prepared for bed, Catherine thought about the responsibility that came with such recognition and felt grateful for the support of her family and the opportunity to serve in a role that allowed her to make a meaningful impact on the lives of others. The second day of Catherine's Welsh tour began with an early morning visit to a coastal village that had been severely affected by recent storms. The community had shown remarkable resilience in rebuilding their harbor and restoring their fishing industry, and Catherine wanted to acknowledge their efforts personally. As her convoy wound along the narrow coastal roads, she could see the dramatic cliffs and churning gray sea that had both sustained and challenged this community for generations. The village of Porthcawl had welcomed her with bunting strung between the weathered stone houses and crowds of locals lining the main street despite the crisp morning air. Catherine had chosen to wear a practical wool coat in forest green, paired with sturdy boots suitable for walking on uneven harbor surfaces. Her choice of attire sent a clear message that she was here to engage meaningfully with the community's work, rather than simply make a ceremonial appearance. At the harbor, Catherine met with local fishermen who explained how the recent storms had damaged their boats and equipment. She listened intently as they described the challenges of making a living from the sea while dealing with increasingly unpredictable weather patterns. One elderly fisherman, whose family had worked these waters for 5 generations, showed her the traditional methods they used to repair their nets. Catherine surprised everyone by asking if she could try her hand at the net mending. Under the patient guidance of the fisherman's daughter, she carefully worked the thick rope through the mesh, her movements becoming more confident with each stitch. The physical nature of the work gave her a deeper appreciation for the skill and dedication required in this traditional industry. The morning also included a visit to the village's new Community Resilience Center, which had been built with support from various charitable organizations, including some that Catherine patronized. The center served as both a meeting place for local residents and an emergency shelter during severe weather events. Catherine toured the facility with the project coordinator, learning about how the community had come together to design and build something that truly met their needs. In the center's main hall, Catherine joined a discussion with local women who had formed a support network in the aftermath of the storms. These women had organized everything from hot meal deliveries to elderly residents to childcare for families whose homes were being repaired. Their stories of community spirit and mutual aid reminded Catherine of the best aspects of British society. One woman shared how losing her own home in the storms had initially devastated her, but that the experience had ultimately led her to discover strengths she never knew she possessed. She had become a coordinator for the relief efforts and found deep satisfaction in helping others navigate the recovery process. Catherine was struck by the woman's transformation from victim to leader and made mental notes about how such resilience could be supported and replicated in other communities. The conversation also touched on the challenges faced by young people in the village, many of whom struggled to find opportunities that would allow them to stay in the community where they had grown up. Catherine listened carefully as parents and community leaders described their efforts to create apprenticeship programs and small business opportunities that could provide viable futures for the next generation. After the discussion, Catherine visited the village's small primary school, where children had created artwork depicting their community before and after the storms. The contrast was striking. The before pictures showed a peaceful coastal village with neat rows of houses and calm blue seas, while the after images depicted the damage caused by the storms, but also the remarkable cleanup and rebuilding efforts that had followed. Catherine spent considerable time with the children, discussing their artwork and listening to their own accounts of the storms. One young boy proudly showed her his drawing of his grandfather's boat, which had been damaged in the storms but had since been repaired and returned to service. The child's pride in his family's resilience was evident in every word he spoke. The school visit also included a special assembly where the children performed songs and poems they had written about their community. Catherine was particularly moved by a song about working together to rebuild their village, which captured both the sadness of what had been lost and the hope of what was being created anew. She joined in the applause enthusiastically and thanked the children for sharing their talents with her. The afternoon brought a shift in focus as Catherine traveled to a nearby town to visit a mental health initiative specifically designed for young people. This program, which operated out of a converted Victorian building, provided counseling services, group therapy sessions, and creative workshops for teenagers struggling with various challenges including anxiety, depression, and family difficulties. Catherine's interest in mental health advocacy had deepened over the years as she had learned more about the critical importance of addressing psychological well-being alongside physical health. She had seen firsthand how untreated mental health issues could derail young lives and was committed to reducing the stigma surrounding mental health treatment while improving access to quality care. The program director gave Catherine a comprehensive tour of the facilities, explaining how they had designed the space to feel welcoming rather than clinical. Bright artwork created by program participants decorated the walls, and comfortable seating areas provided informal spaces where young people could connect with counselors and peers. The approach emphasized creating a sense of safety and community rather than focusing solely on individual therapy. Catherine observed a group therapy session for teenagers dealing with anxiety disorders. With the permission of the participants, she sat quietly in the corner as they engaged in exercises designed to help them recognize and manage their anxiety symptoms. She was impressed by the courage these young people showed in sharing their experiences and supporting one another through difficult moments. Later, she participated in an art therapy workshop, where young people were encouraged to express their feelings through creative projects. Catherine worked alongside a 16-year-old girl who was creating a collage about her hopes for the future. The girl had been struggling with depression following her parents' divorce, but through the program, she had begun to develop coping strategies and rebuild her confidence. The conversation with this young woman stayed with Catherine throughout the afternoon. The girl spoke candidly about how the program had helped her understand that her mental health struggles did not define her, and that seeking help was a sign of strength rather than weakness. Catherine was reminded once again of why she had chosen to prioritize mental health awareness in her public work. The day concluded with a reception at the town hall, where Catherine met with local officials, charity representatives, and community volunteers who supported various initiatives throughout the region. The informal atmosphere allowed for meaningful conversations about the challenges facing Welsh communities and the innovative solutions being developed to address them. During the reception, Catherine was approached by a young woman who had recently started a social enterprise focused on sustainable tourism in rural Wales. The entrepreneur explained how she was working to create economic opportunities that celebrated Welsh culture and natural beauty while providing meaningful employment for local residents. Catherine was fascinated by this innovative approach and spent considerable time discussing the potential for expanding such initiatives. As the evening progressed, Catherine found herself reflecting on the incredible diversity of people and projects she had encountered during just 2 days in Wales. From the resilient fishing community to the creative mental health programs, she had witnessed countless examples of human determination and ingenuity. These experiences reinforced her belief in the importance of her role in highlighting and supporting such efforts. The drive back to her accommodation took her through more beautiful Welsh countryside, now illuminated by the soft light of early evening. Catherine used this quiet time to make notes about the various initiatives she had seen, thinking about how she might be able to provide additional support or bring wider attention to their work. That night, as she prepared for the next day's activities, Catherine felt a growing sense of anticipation about the remainder of her trip. Each day had brought new insights and inspiration, and she was beginning to understand how these experiences were preparing her for the significant Tiara event that awaited her at the trip's conclusion. The confidence she was gaining through these meaningful interactions with Welsh communities was building the foundation for her next step forward in her royal role. The third day of Catherine's Welsh journey brought her to the heart of industrial Wales, where she would explore the region's rich mining heritage and witness how former mining communities had transformed themselves in the decades since the mines closed. The morning began with a visit to a heritage site that had once been one of Wales's most productive coal mines and was now a museum and educational center dedicated to preserving the memory of this crucial chapter in Welsh history. Catherine arrived at the former colliery wearing a practical dark blue ensemble suitable for touring industrial sites. The contrast between the polished, modern visitor center and the preserved mining infrastructure told the story of Wales's economic transformation in visual terms. She was greeted by former miners who now served as tour guides, sharing their personal experiences of working underground and helping visitors understand what life had been like in the mining communities. Descending into the preserved mine shaft, Catherine experienced firsthand the claustrophobic conditions in which generations of Welsh men had labored. The guided tour took her through narrow tunnels where the walls still bore the marks of pickaxes, and the air carried the faint scent of coal dust. Her guide, a man named Di who had worked in the mines for 30 years before their closure, explained the dangers and difficulties of underground work with a combination of pride and realism that Catherine found deeply moving. The experience of walking through the mine tunnels gave Catherine a profound appreciation for the physical courage and community solidarity that had characterized mining life. Di explained how miners had depended on each other for survival, developing strong bonds of trust and mutual support that extended far beyond the workplace into their families and neighborhoods. This sense of community had become a defining characteristic of Welsh mining villages, persisting long after the economic foundation that created it had disappeared. Emerging from underground, Catherine spent time in the museum's exhibits, which documented not only the technical aspects of mining, but also the social and cultural life of mining communities. She was particularly interested in displays about the role of women in mining families, who had managed households and raised children, while their husbands worked dangerous jobs underground. The strength and resilience of these women resonated with Catherine's own understanding of the challenges faced by families dealing with demanding and sometimes dangerous occupations. The museum visit also included a conversation with a group of former miners' wives who shared their memories of the mine closures in the 1980s and the devastating impact on their communities. These women spoke candidly about the fear and uncertainty they had experienced as their husbands lost their jobs and their communities faced an uncertain future. Yet their stories were also filled with examples of creativity and determination, as families found new ways to survive and thrive. Catherine was particularly moved by the story of one woman who had started a small catering business from her kitchen after her husband lost his mining job. What began as a way to earn a few extra pounds had eventually grown into a successful company that employed dozens of people from the local community. This transformation from desperation to entrepreneurial success illustrated the resilience and adaptability that Catherine had observed throughout her Welsh tour. The afternoon brought a visit to a contemporary example of economic regeneration in the form of a technology park that had been built on the site of a former steelworks. This facility now housed dozens of small and medium-sized businesses, ranging from software development companies to advanced manufacturing firms. The transformation of this industrial site into a modern business hub represented the kind of economic evolution that many Welsh communities had undergone. Catherine toured several of the businesses in the technology park, meeting entrepreneurs who had chosen to base their companies in Wales rather than moving to larger cities. She was impressed by their commitment to creating opportunities in communities that had historically depended on heavy industry. One software company had been founded by a group of university friends who could have easily found jobs in London or other major cities, but had decided to build their business in Wales to contribute to their home communities. The visit included a roundtable discussion with business owners and local economic development officials about the challenges and opportunities facing Wales in the modern economy. Catherine listened carefully as they discussed issues ranging from access to high-speed internet in rural areas to the need for skills training programs that could prepare workers for 21st-century jobs. During this discussion, Catherine was struck by the balance these business leaders sought between economic growth and community preservation. They spoke passionately about wanting to create prosperity without losing the close-knit community relationships that made Welsh villages and towns special places to live. This tension between progress and tradition was something Catherine understood from her own position within an institution that constantly sought to balance historical continuity with contemporary relevance. One particularly inspiring conversation was with a young woman who had returned to Wales after completing her university education in London to start a sustainable fashion company. She explained how she had been motivated by a desire to create ethical employment opportunities while celebrating traditional Welsh textiles and craftsmanship. Her small company employed local seamstresses and worked with Welsh wool producers to create clothing that was both environmentally responsible and economically viable. The visit to the technology park also included a stop at a training center that provided courses in digital skills for workers transitioning from traditional industries. Catherine observed classes where former miners and steelworkers were learning computer programming and digital marketing skills. The determination of these older workers to master new technologies was evident in their focused attention and thoughtful questions. Catherine was particularly moved by a conversation with a man in his 50s who had been a steel worker for 25 years before the plant closed. He was now studying web design and spoke enthusiastically about his plans to start a digital marketing business serving local companies. His optimism and adaptability in the face of major career disruption exemplified the spirit of resilience that Catherine had encountered throughout her Welsh tour. The evening brought Catherine to a community center in a former mining town, where local residents had organized a cultural celebration featuring traditional Welsh music, dance, and storytelling. The event was designed to showcase the rich cultural heritage that had sustained these communities through both prosperous and difficult times. Catherine arrived to find the center decorated with Welsh flags and filled with families representing multiple generations. The evening began with performances by a children's choir that sang traditional Welsh songs, with voices that seemed to carry the echoes of centuries. Catherine was visibly moved by their performance, particularly by a haunting ballad about miners who had lost their lives in underground accidents. The beauty of the music combined with the solemnity of the subject matter created a powerful moment that honored both the joy and sorrow that were part of Welsh mining heritage. Catherine also witnessed traditional Welsh dancing, performed by teenagers who had learned the steps from their grandparents. The continuity of cultural tradition across generations was evident in the way older community members watched with pride as young people performed dances that had been passed down through their families. This living connection between past and present reinforced Catherine's appreciation for the importance of cultural preservation. The evening included storytelling sessions where elderly residents shared memories of life in the mining communities. Catherine listened intently as they described everything from the daily routines of mining families to the major community celebrations that had marked the calendar year. These personal narratives brought the historical displays she had seen earlier in the day to life, illustrating how major economic and social changes had affected individual families and communities. One particularly memorable story came from an elderly woman who described the day her mining village learned that their pit would be closing permanently. She spoke about the mixture of fear and determination that had gripped the community as residents realized they would need to completely reimagine their economic future. Her account of how neighbors had supported each other through this transition reinforced Catherine's understanding of the strength that could emerge from adversity. As the cultural celebration continued into the evening, Catherine found herself drawn into conversations with people from across the community spectrum. Young parents spoke about their hopes for their children's futures. Elderly residents shared wisdom gained from decades of experience, and middle-aged workers discussed their efforts to balance respect for tradition with openness to change. The warmth and inclusivity of the evening reminded Catherine of why she found her Welsh visit so meaningful. Unlike some of the more formal events in her royal calendar, these community celebrations allowed for genuine human connections that enriched her understanding of the people she served. As she prepared to leave the community center, Catherine felt grateful for the opportunity to witness such a beautiful expression of Welsh culture and community spirit. The drive back to her accommodation took her through villages that were now familiar from her previous days of touring. Catherine found herself reflecting on the remarkable consistency of themes she had encountered throughout her Welsh visit. Whether in coastal fishing communities, former mining towns, or modern technology parks, she had witnessed the same qualities of resilience, community solidarity, and hopeful determination that seemed to define the Welsh character. The fourth day of Catherine's Welsh tour marked a significant shift in both the nature of her activities and the growing anticipation surrounding the approaching Tiara event. Word had begun to spread through royal circles and the media that something special was being planned for the conclusion of her visit, though the exact details remained carefully guarded. Catherine herself felt the building excitement as she prepared for a day that would focus on education and youth development, causes that had always been particularly close to her heart. The morning began with a visit to a comprehensive school in Swansea that had been recognized nationally for its innovative approaches to supporting students from disadvantaged backgrounds. The school served a diverse community where many families struggled with economic hardship, yet it had achieved remarkable success in helping students achieve their academic potential and prepare for future careers or higher education. Catherine arrived at the school wearing a bright burgundy coat that seemed to energize everyone she encountered. The choice of color was deliberate, as she had learned that the school's colors were burgundy and gold, and her outfit was a subtle way of showing her connection to the institution she was visiting. Students and staff had gathered in the main courtyard to welcome her, and their enthusiasm was immediately apparent. The head teacher, a dynamic woman named Mrs. Evans, who had led the school's transformation over the past decade, guided Catherine through a tour that showcased the various programs that made the school special. They began in the Technology Center, where students were working on robotics projects that combined engineering skills with creative problem-solving. Catherine watched as a group of teenagers programmed robots to navigate complex obstacle courses, their concentration and teamwork evident in every movement. One student, a 15-year-old named Reese, whose family had struggled with unemployment, explained how the robotics program had given him confidence and a sense of direction he had never experienced in traditional academic subjects. His enthusiasm for technology was infectious, and Catherine found herself asking detailed questions about his projects and future plans. Reese spoke about his dream of studying engineering at university, a goal that had seemed impossible before he discovered his aptitude for technical subjects. The school visit also included time in the creative arts department, where students were participating in a collaborative project to design and build sets for a musical production about Welsh history. Catherine watched as students worked together to paint backdrops, construct props, and rehearse scenes from the performance. The project integrated history, art, music, and drama while teaching valuable collaboration skills that would serve students well in their future careers. Catherine was particularly impressed by a conversation with a group of students who had struggled academically in traditional subjects but had found success through the arts program. These young people spoke candidly about how creative expression had helped them develop confidence and discover talents they never knew they possessed. Their teacher explained how the arts program had dramatically reduced dropout rates while improving overall academic performance across the school. The morning also included a visit to the school's Career Guidance Center, where students received personalized support in planning their post-graduation paths. Catherine met with counselors who worked closely with local employers to create apprenticeship opportunities and with university admissions officers to ensure students had access to higher education regardless of their family's economic circumstances. During a roundtable discussion with students from various grade levels, Catherine listened to their aspirations and concerns about the future. Many spoke about wanting to make positive contributions to their communities while also achieving personal success. Their maturity and thoughtfulness impressed Catherine, who found their questions and observations both challenging and inspiring. One particularly memorable conversation was with a 17-year-old named Megan, who had started a peer mentoring program for younger students struggling with anxiety and self-confidence issues. Megan explained how her own struggles with mental health had motivated her to help others facing similar challenges. Her initiative had grown from informal conversations with friends to a structured program that was now being implemented in other schools across the region. The afternoon brought Catherine to a youth center that provided after-school and weekend programs for young people throughout Swansea. The center offered everything from homework help and tutoring to sports leagues and creative workshops, serving as a safe space where young people could spend their free time productively while building positive relationships with peers and adult mentors. Catherine toured the center's various activity areas, observing programs in progress and talking with both participants and staff members. In the study area, she saw students receiving one-on-one tutoring help from volunteer university students and retired teachers. The quiet concentration and mutual respect evident in these interactions reminded Catherine of the importance of individual attention in helping young people achieve their potential. The center's sports facilities were bustling with activity as different age groups participated in basketball, football, and table tennis competitions. Catherine joined in briefly with a group of 12-year-olds playing table tennis, her competitive spirit emerging as she engaged in friendly matches with young people who were clearly delighted by her willingness to participate in their games. More significantly, Catherine spent time in the center's life skills workshop, where teenagers were learning practical abilities ranging from financial literacy to job interview techniques. She observed a mock interview session where young people practiced presenting themselves professionally while receiving constructive feedback from adult volunteers who worked in various industries. The youth center visit also included a discussion with staff members about the challenges facing young people in their community. They spoke about issues ranging from academic pressure and social media influences to family instability and limited economic opportunities. Catherine was struck by the dedication of these youth workers, who clearly viewed their work as more than just a job, but as a calling to make positive differences in young lives. One staff member shared the story of a young man who had been heading towards serious trouble before becoming involved with the center's programs. Through patient mentoring and opportunities to develop his interests in music production, he had completely turned his life around and was now studying at a technical college while working part-time at the center as a junior staff member. This transformation story illustrated the kind of impact that quality youth programs could have when they provided both structure and genuine care. As the afternoon progressed, Catherine participated in a creative writing workshop where young people were encouraged to express their thoughts and feelings about their community and their hopes for the future. She read several of the pieces they had written and was moved by their insights and eloquence. Many of the writings reflected deep love for their Welsh heritage, combined with ambitious dreams for personal achievement and community improvement. The visit concluded with a special presentation where young people from various programs performed music, recited poetry, and displayed artwork they had created. Catherine was particularly moved by a song written and performed by a group of teenagers about overcoming adversity and supporting one another through difficult times. The maturity and artistic talent evident in their performance reinforced her belief in the importance of providing young people with opportunities to develop and showcase their abilities. During the closing reception at the youth center, Catherine had the opportunity to speak individually with many of the young people she had met throughout the day. Their questions about her own educational experiences and career path revealed their genuine curiosity about how different people navigated challenges and achieved their goals. Catherine found these conversations energizing and reminded her of why she had chosen to focus much of her public work on education and youth development. As evening approached, Catherine received a briefing from her private secretary about the final preparations for the next day's Tiara event. The significance of this upcoming ceremony was becoming clearer, and she felt a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation about what it would represent for her future role within the royal family. The confidence and sense of purpose she had gained through her interactions with Welsh communities over the past several days had prepared her well for this next step. The drive back to her accommodation took Catherine through the heart of Swansea, where she could see the city coming alive with evening activities. Young people walked in groups along the streets, heading to restaurants, cinemas, and other entertainment venues. Seeing these young Welsh people enjoying their freedom and pursuing their interests reinforced Catherine's commitment to supporting programs and policies that would give all young people similar opportunities to thrive. That evening, as Catherine reviewed her notes from the day and prepared for the momentous events ahead, she reflected on how much her understanding of Wales and its people had deepened over the past 4 days. Each community she had visited had taught her something new about resilience, creativity, and the importance of maintaining hope in the face of challenges. The young people she had met that day had been particularly inspiring in their combination of respect for their Welsh heritage and ambitious plans for their own futures. Their energy and optimism reminded Catherine of why her role in the royal family was so meaningful. It provided her with platforms to highlight and support the kind of positive work being done in communities throughout the United Kingdom. As she prepared for bed, Catherine felt a deep sense of gratitude for the experiences of the past several days, and growing excitement about the Tiara event that would mark both the conclusion of her Welsh tour and the beginning of a new chapter in her royal responsibilities. The final day of Catherine's Welsh tour dawned crisp and clear, with golden sunlight streaming through the windows of her suite as she prepared for what would become one of the most significant days of her royal career. The long-awaited Tiara event was finally at hand, and the careful planning and preparation of the past months were about to culminate in a ceremony that would mark a new chapter in both her personal journey and her public role. Catherine's morning began earlier than usual, as the complexity of the day's events required extensive preparation. Her dresser had arrived with several carefully selected outfit options, each representing different aspects of the significance of the day ahead. The main event would require formal attire suitable for a major royal ceremony, but the day would also include several community engagements that demanded a more approachable appearance. The first of these community visits took Catherine to a women's shelter in Newport, where she would meet with survivors of domestic violence and the dedicated staff members who provided them with safety and support. This visit held special meaning for Catherine, as it represented her growing involvement in addressing issues affecting women's safety and welfare, causes that would become increasingly important in her evolving royal role. Catherine arrived at the shelter wearing an understated but elegant navy dress that conveyed both professionalism and warmth. The choice was deliberate, as she wanted to show respect for the serious nature of the work being done at the shelter, while remaining approachable to women who might be feeling vulnerable or uncertain about meeting a member of the royal family. The shelter director, a remarkable woman named Sarah, who had dedicated her career to supporting domestic violence survivors, guided Catherine through the facility with obvious pride in the work being accomplished there. The building itself had been thoughtfully designed to provide both security and comfort, with bright common areas where residents could gather and private spaces, where they could meet with counselors or simply find moments of solitude. Catherine spent considerable time talking with staff members about the complex challenges they faced in helping women rebuild their lives after escaping abusive situations. The conversations revealed the multifaceted nature of domestic violence recovery, encompassing not only immediate safety concerns, but also longer-term issues related to housing, employment, childcare, and legal proceedings. The most powerful part of the shelter visit came when Catherine met with several women who were willing to share their stories of survival and recovery. These conversations took place in a comfortable sitting room, where the women could speak openly about their experiences while maintaining their privacy and dignity. Catherine listened with deep attention and obvious emotion as they described both the trauma they had endured and the strength they had discovered in themselves. One woman, whose children had also lived at the shelter, spoke about how the support she had received had enabled her to return to school and pursue a nursing degree. Her transformation from victim to healer illustrated the kind of empowerment that quality support programs could facilitate. Catherine was moved by this woman's courage and determination to build a new life, while also helping others facing similar challenges. Another conversation was with a young mother who had arrived at the shelter just weeks earlier with her infant daughter. The fear and uncertainty in her voice were still evident, but so was her determination to create a safe future for her child. Catherine spoke gently with this woman about the importance of taking one day at a time and trusting in the support system that surrounded her. The shelter visit also included time with children who were living there with their mothers. Catherine joined them in the play area, where toys and books provided normalcy and comfort during what was often a frightening and confusing time in their young lives. Her natural ease with children was evident as she read stories and helped with puzzles, bringing moments of lightness to circumstances that were often quite serious. Before leaving the shelter, Catherine participated in a strategy session with staff members and volunteers about expanding services and improving support systems for domestic violence survivors. Her questions demonstrated both genuine interest and growing expertise in understanding the complex needs of women seeking to escape abusive relationships. The drive from the shelter to the venue for the afternoon's Tiara event took Catherine through some of the most beautiful countryside Wales had to offer. Rolling green hills dotted with sheep, ancient stone walls, and picturesque villages provided a serene backdrop that helped her transition mentally from the serious work of the morning to the ceremonial significance of what lay ahead. Caerphilly Castle, the magnificent medieval fortress that would serve as the setting for the Tiara event, came into view as Catherine's motorcade wound through the historic town center. The castle's imposing towers and walls provided a dramatic backdrop that connected the modern ceremony to centuries of Welsh history and royal tradition. The choice of venue was deeply symbolic, representing the enduring connection between the royal family and the people of Wales. The afternoon was dedicated to final preparations for the evening ceremony. Catherine's team had transformed one of the castle's great halls into a preparation area where every detail of her appearance for the Tiara event could be carefully arranged. The process of getting ready for such a significant ceremony required hours of meticulous attention to hair, makeup, and the intricate details of formal royal attire. The tiara itself, which had been kept under the strictest security throughout the tour, was finally revealed to Catherine in a private moment that was both emotional and practical. The exquisite piece, featuring diamonds and Welsh gold, had been specially created for this occasion and represented not only magnificent craftsmanship but also the symbolic importance of Catherine's growing role within the royal family. As Catherine was fitted with the tiara for the first time, she experienced a profound moment of reflection about the journey that had brought her to this point. From her early days as a university student meeting Prince William to her development as a confident and capable member of the royal family, every experience had contributed to preparing her for this moment of formal recognition. The ceremony itself took place in the castle's great hall as the sun began to set over the Welsh countryside. Representatives from every community Catherine had visited during her tour were present, along with local government officials, charity leaders, and other dignitaries who had been touched by her work throughout Wales. The formal presentation of the tiara was conducted by a senior member of the royal household, who spoke eloquently about Catherine's dedication to public service and her special connection to Wales. The ceremony acknowledged not only her accomplishments during the current tour, but also her years of committed work in areas ranging from early childhood development to mental health advocacy. As Catherine received the tiara in the formal ceremony, she was surrounded by many of the people whose lives had intersected with hers during the tour. The children from the community centers, the women from the shelter, the young people from the schools and youth programs. Their presence transformed what could have been simply a formal royal ceremony into a celebration of community engagement and shared purpose. The evening concluded with a reception where Catherine had the opportunity to speak individually with many of the guests about their work and their communities. The conversations reinforced the connections she had built throughout the tour, while also looking forward to future collaborations and continued support for the causes they represented. In her formal remarks during the reception, Catherine spoke movingly about what the week in Wales had meant to her personally and professionally. She acknowledged the honor of receiving the tiara while emphasizing that the real significance of the ceremony lay in its recognition of the collaborative work being done by communities throughout Wales to support their most vulnerable members. The speech demonstrated Catherine's growth as a public speaker and her deepening understanding of her role within the royal family. She spoke with confidence and genuine emotion about the privilege of serving the people of Wales and the United Kingdom, while also acknowledging the responsibility that came with such recognition. As the evening wound down and guests began to depart, Catherine took a quiet moment to walk alone through the castle courtyard, still wearing the magnificent tiara that now symbolized her elevated status within the royal hierarchy. The weight of the jewels reminded her of the weight of responsibility she now carried, but rather than feeling burdened by this responsibility, she felt energized and prepared for the challenges ahead. The drive back to her accommodation took Catherine through the same Welsh villages she had visited over the past several days, but now they looked different to her. The communities that had welcomed her with such warmth had become part of her own story, and she knew that the relationship she had built during this tour would continue to influence and inspire her work for years to come. Later that evening, as Catherine carefully removed the tiara and reflected on the extraordinary day, she felt a deep sense of accomplishment and anticipation. The ceremony had marked not just the conclusion of a successful tour, but the beginning of a new phase in her royal career. one in which she would have greater authority and responsibility for representing the monarchy's commitment to public service. The week in Wales had demonstrated Catherine's readiness for this expanded role through her confident handling of complex issues, her genuine connections with people from all walks of life, and her clear vision for how royal influence could be used to support positive change in communities throughout the United Kingdom. The Tiara event had been both a recognition of past achievements and a promise of future service, marking Catherine's emergence as a truly formidable member of the royal family.